All right. Well, welcome everyone. It's the last day we're together. I'll spare you the song about it's so nice. I'll sing it at the end, maybe the Mickey Mouse song. uh, am I aging myself probably? But anyway, well, welcome to our last session today, which will be on human resources, and then we'll give you instructions for graduation as we get closer to that time.
Please check the number and dial again.
I didn't call anyone. So let's get going. I want to just give a last shout out to our sponsors. As you can see, Z. Smith Reynolds Do Continuing Studies, Guilford Nonprofit Consortium, and the Earl and Catherine Condon Family Foundation. Thank them once again for making this nonprofit management series possible. Today's agenda is another packed one, but I think you all are old pros at a packed full day. We'll be going over financial management and fundraising. Again, we'll schedule our breaks in, or you guys put up your hand and say, okay, that's enough info for this next few minutes. Let's take a break. Either or, it doesn't matter. So let's get going and let's hop into the information for today. Dr. Palmer?
Thank you, Lisa. Team, if we could just leave the slide here for just a second. So as our recap of session 5, as Lisa mentioned, we studied and worked through financial management and fundraising last week. And so what I would like to do is just kind of get a read on 2 things. One, I'd like to know what is very clear to you about what we did last week, if you're open to sharing that either in the chat or by unmuting. And then the next part of that is going to be around what is not clear. So if we could go to the gallery view for that. Hey, I love being in the gallery space because I can see everybody as opposed to just looking at that. Beth, I love
I know, and I know I totally confused everybody by telling people that what we did last week is what we're doing today.
It's okay.
So that was a mistake. I'm gonna go get my second cup of coffee because I'm already starting off wrong. So I realized I did that boo-boo. Sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. Teamwork makes the dream work. I got it. And I was saying, Beth, I like your glasses.
Hi, thank you.
Well, again, good morning. And as I mentioned before, our topic last week was financial management and fundraising. And we were able to have Tracy, who is our Chief Program Officer for the North Carolina Center for Nonprofits, join us. We always do that. It's great to kind of have her in that space when we're working through that, especially for some of those specific questions that are on the CPA level. And then our second topic was related to fundraising. And so just kind of give me a sense of what about financial management was very clear to you. And then we'll do the same with fundraising. What, as you think about it, what comes to mind like, wow, I really understood that. Financial management.
Well, for me, it got me to really thinking about how I manage my finances. So looking more into QuickBooks or some type of a system. Right now, I'm just using Excel, but I can see that being a little overwhelming after a certain point, hopefully. So having a management system in place. Also speaking with my group, for collecting donations, from private donors and things like that, having a platform for those donations and not using Cash App or PayPal or things like that, but really having a system in place to be able to capture everything and pull a report together for me to make it easier on myself. So that's what I learned.
It is, thank you, Christina. It is very, very important to identify a platform, whatever it is going to be, and that folks who need to know understand what it is. And the more we use it, the better we get. Some of us are not as inclined in that part of the business of running a nonprofit, in terms of that. So minimally, if we can get a gauge and a sense of how the platform works, then we know what it can produce for us, and we can continue to enhance and hone our skills there. I did see a note in the chat about diversifying revenue. That is and should be our goal. I can't tell you how many agencies I work with who find themselves in being very, very challenged around cash flow. And being able to have cash flow that we need has a lot to do with what we decide that we're going to, what sources we're going to pursue in order to get dollars in the door. We should all be, if we are a 501c3 public charity, we should be receiving some level of individual donations, and we should be trying to grow that each and every year. Those dollars typically are unrestricted. And so when we need to do things that are outside of the scope of the grant or outside of the scope of our contracts, then we have those dollars. And that is why when we do these two management topics, that's why we do those two together, because there should be this interface in between financial management and fundraising. And it takes time to get there. So it's not an overnight thing. Was there anything that was not clear to you that we covered related to the financial management part of our work? That was not clear. Anything that was that was not clear, that you're thinking, I don't quite get. Budgeting can be challenging. You know, if we don't have like an approach to that, or a system in doing and determining how we're going to develop a budget, sometimes that can be challenging. And I know some of our organizations are smaller, but that doesn't mean we don't budget. We should still be budgeting. So that's real important. And thank you, Carrie, for your feedback. What about fundraising? I'm going to go directly to what wasn't clear about fundraising. What was not clear? Like, I really don't know what we were trying to do, or what we were trying to share. Was there anything not clear about? You know, fundraising is sales. We do know that, right? It's selling the organization. I mean, it is good old-fashioned salesmanship is what it is that we're typically doing. And we're trying to, as I mentioned before, we're trying to get some individual donations or some cash donations in the door. And it's not to say we won't accept other assets. We will accept property. We don't have a problem accepting property. We will do that. But our main goal is to try to do some friend raising and fundraising to be able to start to see donations coming in the door. I'll tell you what I'm seeing, and some of you can chime in if you're seeing this or something different. I'm seeing us move towards trying to get more donors giving smaller gifts over a longer period of time. You know, it used to be, if you remember the pyramid that we discussed, whenever we would establish our annual campaign strategy, it used to be we would try to kind of tier it, right? Like, so we might have, I don't know, 10 people we might be pursuing for a $10,000 gift, and one person we're trying to pursue for a $100,000 gift. And that is not to say that we don't incorporate that strategy, but what I am seeing is the recurring, trying to get, you know, Pamela Palmer as the donor to give, first of all, the first time, which is the impulse donor that we talked about, and then trying to kind of move me into being habitual, like it's a habit and recurring, and moving into thoughtfulness as it relates to the giving. So I'm seeing us start to do more of that, not a lot, but I'm seeing that being a little bit of a shift for some organizations that, if we can get 1,000 folks to give $1,000, that, that's how much. Is that $1 million? Did I do my math right? So we're starting to kind of see a little bit more of that activity. Any other thoughts about fundraising? And it does take time. It's fundraising is every day. It's not just during campaign months. It's not just, it's every day we should be doing something related to trying to get those donations in. Someone was about to say something. Feel free to go ahead. Or I thought I heard someone go off mute.
Oh, Dr. Palmer, this is Carrie. I have to agree with you on the smaller donations making a large impact. What I found in the last year and a half or so is I'm incurring a lot of donor fatigue. There are so many organizations in a small community that it's difficult to pull out large sums of money at this point. I mean, I'm seeing when I'm going out to events, I'm seeing the same people at the events, and their dollars will only stretch so far. So what I've been trying to do at Smart Start of Forsyth County is we've been trying to do a campaign where we're asking for everyday donations, and not meaning like every day, but just small amounts matter type of a thing. So that way it's not as hurtful to your bottom line if you're giving $20 per month type of a thing, or $100 a year, because those add up. I'm not looking for a one-time donor, I'm looking for a lifetime donor. So we try to make it much more palatable for someone to say, well, I can do that.
I like that, lifetime donor.
Mm-hmm.
I like that,
Yeah.
and especially in our local communities,
Mm-hmm.
where folks really do know who we are, or if they don't, it's, definitely doable to continue to educate them on who we are.
Mm-hmm.
And, social media is great for that, because you can be live at an event that you're having, and you can ask for donations live at the event at that time. And I am probably as challenged as anyone when it comes to social media and having a cadence with that, and really making it work. But it can work. It can definitely work. The thing about coupling your strategy, which I like, and thank you for sharing it with us, is coupling that with a social media apparatus. The thing about that, though, is the consistency is important. So you can't be live and then go ghost, and then be live again and then go ghost. It really does have to be this kind of rapid, I think I mean rapid fire.
Yeah, it's a cadence.
Yeah.
It really does have to be an ever-flowing movement. When you start to drop down, you need to really pick it up, and so you have to really remind. Yeah.
So that's good. Thank you so much. Anybody else before we take a look at our agenda for today?
You guys brought up some really good points on fundraising and more quantity of folks and the cadence, which I completely agree with. We're rolling out a program to hopefully get between 400 and 500 donors with our program for 2024. And these are going to be at levels of between $15 and $500. And it matters, quite frankly, every dollar matters. The biggest thing too, I would say, from some of the folks that I hear from here in really the entire state of North Carolina, is folks come in, give their grant application or ask for, this, that, or the other, but don't go to that next level on exactly what they need, when and where, and how does the next 24 months look. So that's the biggest feedback that I would give, is go in, have the game plan, and then also a quarterly or semi-annual PowerPoint or, collage of how their money's truly impacted your 501c3 is all things that we're putting together right now at ours with Eddie and myself.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that. Thanks. Yes, it is, it is uninterrupted. It's an uninterrupted strategy or strategies, because it's multiple things that we're working on simultaneously. But again, once you get that rhythm, it's just important to just keep it, to try to keep that going. And I can't say enough, it's every day. Fundraising is every day.
Every day,
and I
every
think
dollar.
That is so important. Grant writing is is a period of time. You write the grant, you get it, and then you implement the work. And so there's that. But fundraising is every single day. It is not, you put it off and you lose cadence. You put it off, you lose the opportunity. You start to reduce the opportunity to really get in those dollars that will make a difference. So, Carrie, you were gonna say?
No, I just was saying every day, every dollar. And also the other thing I've strongly focused on this particular, or the last 6 months, is leaning on my board. Using those board members, because I think we bring on board members, and especially if they're in non-paid positions, that one of their in-kind functions, and you have to remind them, is to bring in potential donors to start purchasing tables for the events and filling those tables with individuals who can give. So if you're not thinking about that aspect, that's something that I would definitely recommend. You don't have to bleed them dry, but use them for the resources, because that's where they'll give you the biggest bang for your buck.
Agreed. Agreed. Well, thank you all for sharing. Again, that our topic last week was financial management and fundraising. And as with all of these topics, we could do training all day on one of these topics. I mean, it is that could very well be a reality. But in the Institute, what we try to do is give a experience, or provide an experience that gives us the fundamentals across these 6 areas. Now, keep in mind, there are some other management functions as well, to kind of keep in mind that we know that you're managing and that you're leading each and every day. So thank you all for sharing. And I don't know about you all, but I was taking notes. Donor fatigue, lifetime donor, every day, every dollar, utilize board members. I get tips any way that I can get them. So I hope you were honing in on some of those tips that your colleagues were sharing in real time. So, all right, our next topic, Lisa, I'm gonna let you take it away as far as sharing our agenda, and I hope I didn't miss anyone.
So the real agenda for today is not fundraising and financial management. It is human resources. I think I got my brain back. So Dr. Palmer, again, as you can see on the right, will go through all phases of human resources. Again, a high level view, recruitment, retention, and reward for your staff. So we're hoping that you'll find this session engaging as well. And again, once we finish that, we'll go into graduation, which you'll get some further instructions on when we get to that time, and our evaluation and closing from there. So I hope you all will stick with us today as we go through this.
Awesome, thank you. And team, can we show the document that everyone received in the wraparound? Can we show that real quick and then come back to this? And if I just want to make
Remember
sure.
which document?
It's the one that has the links on it. Am I right, Rebecca, Leslie, or am I not right with that?
Yeah.
Yep, you're right.
Leslie, if you can share it on your screen and then I can pop it into
Perfect.
into the chat here.
Thank you so much. So you received this in your wraparound. So I want to make sure that we all kind of get to that. So it has human resources at the top and it is handouts, and you're going to see links that kind of go with each one of the topics there. Thank you, team. Thank you so much. Okay, all right. And now if we can go back to our slide here. So the way in which we have arranged our work related to human resources is we've arranged it in three parts: recruitment, retention, and reward as it relates to personnel. And as it relates to recruitment, we are going to focus on these bullet points: paid employees and staff versus contract, job descriptions, compensation, hiring practice, and living wage. And so that is the specific info that we're going to share there. And then in terms of retention, background checks, conflict of interest, employee benefits, employee handbook, employee relations programs, employee retention, grievance process, and succession policy and planning. Under reward, we're focusing on career development, promotion, professional development, performance evaluations, status of workers, whether or not they're independent contractors or exempt. And then we're going to talk about reviewing compensation. So those are kind of the main areas that we're going to focus on. And I did see a question in the chat. Yes. So in your wraparound communication, you received a document, and that document is titled Human Resources Handouts. And there are links there for you. And we're going to be toggling really back and forth with these. So I want to make sure everyone kind of has access to those documents. Jamaica has her hand up.
So I was just wondering if those links are time sensitive. Like if I click on them, then come out of them and then go back like a couple of days later, will they be broken links, or are they like just good to go?
Go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. All those links that we provide, any of the handouts we provide, and any of the wraparound or reminder emails through Salesforce, we put in extranet. So you'll have access to those files. If you save those emails we send to you that have in the wraparound email, you'll see a link to the extranet for all the handouts and the slide deck and everything. As long as you have those and you click on that, you'll have access to those files in our extranet. Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I know it's a lot. We throw a lot at you in this course, and it's hard to keep it all, in line. So it's good to ask those questions, make sure you understand.
Okay. So if we could go to the gallery view, that would be great. So I just want to make sure that everyone can open the document. Everybody has the document, and Rebecca did put the link to the doc in the chat in the event that if you're like me, you've had how many emails since you received that wraparound email. So that document is there. And again, related to the question that was asked, I think it's great that you can go back and access this information and that it's right there at your fingertips. So that is one place that we're going to be retrieving information. Another place is your workbook. In your workbook, starting on page 126, and going to the end of the workbook, which is page 133. Those are the pages or handouts that we're going to be utilizing today. And so you should have your workbook there handy. You should have access to your to the document that has a list of the handouts that we're going to be referencing with our work today. So be patient with yourself as you're navigating back and forth. And I'll try to do the same for all of us as I'm facilitating our work, just to make sure that we're all together there. Any questions about where your information is located? Where your information is located? Everybody's good? Everybody has access? Okay, great. So where I want to start with our topic on human resources is I want to get a sense of what the human resource management function looks like with your organization. So depending upon our size, depending upon our resources and our capacity, our human resource departments, if I can even call it that, it varies from organization to organization. So we have our information framed around recruitment, retention, and reward. And then we've kind of built in elements of personnel administration in there. You can either put it in the chat or you can unmute yourself. Give me an idea of what HR looks like in your organization. And some of you may be thinking, Dr. Palmer, is this a joke? No, I promise you it's not a joke. I promise you, this is not a trick question, because I know we're all set up differently. And team, the chat is lighting up, so I'm gonna let you all share some of what you see.
A one-man band.
A one-man band, okay.
It's unfortunate, but it doesn't exist. Contracting, part-time consultant with unclear responsibilities. Oh. Some things are outsourced. Small enough to be able to use an HR consultant. Outsourced. I'm the only employee and have just picked up a very part-time contractor. Non-existent. 3-person team, they do everything. Some of these I'm just ad-libbing on. They have a generalist who is green and an outsourced support. Okay, comments are slowing down.
Okay, thank you. So here's the reality. It's all of that, correct? It depends on your organization and what you, in some cases, are fortunate enough to have at your disposal. Some of our nonprofit organizations make sure that they have on their boards HR professionals, and they utilize those folks as a resource to the executive director or the CEO as they're navigating personnel matters and personnel administration. A lot of our executive directors and CEOs are doing a significant amount of the HR and personnel administration work. Oftentimes, as you saw in the chat, we might find that you are able to identify a person on staff that can take on some parts of the HR and personnel administration work. Some elements of what we do, but in particular payroll, a lot of times that's outsourced. There are some companies that provide like a HR support resource. And they also have products and services that they also offer. So we see quite a bit of that happening. If your organization is outsourcing to a personnel HR firm of sorts, can you put the name of the firm or organization in the chat of who you're using? There are a variety of these organizations that are available, and some we do have, and I saw this in the chat, some HR professionals have now turned consultants, and they will serve as a support to your organization. And team, I'm gonna let you all shout out what companies folks are putting in the
So
chat.
far, Catapult. Am I pronouncing that right?
Oh, okay,
It's the only one I see at the moment.
okay.
Oh, oh, oh. Bambi,
Okay,
Diversity,
okay,
Eliason.
okay. I didn't see, what is the one, there's a popular one, and right now I'm having a moment, I can't remember. It is, not Flex Pay, I think that's payroll. There's another one that I see oftentimes that folks are using. There is one called EBC Mineral. I think that's one. There's an
Like
organization I'm
Paychex?
working, what is it?
Were you thinking of paychecks?
Paychecks, that's it.
We just switched over to Prime Pay, and they also have an HR function integrated into the payroll function.
Okay, so Prime, ADP, Paycheck.
ADP is another Paychecks, Prime Pay.
Mhm.
So there are some resources out there, but they do cost. I mean, it does cost to be able to utilize those sources. The one thing I will say, if you pay for one of those resources, use it. A lot of times what I'm seeing is we're not using the resource. And that's why you subscribe to them, is so that you can tap into what they have available to you anytime you need it. So you know, try to make sure that you're using that. And these sources, you know, interview them, make sure that they are providing, you know, what it is that you need. And I know payroll is a big one, you know, being able to have an entity to do that is very, very helpful. So again, we're all at different places with this in terms of what we have available to us as it relates to HR. So that's important to keep in mind. Team, if we could go to slide 11. So there are a couple of things I want to mention at the onset of this conversation and work around human resources. And that is related to some guiding principles and values that's important to keep in mind. That is equal employment opportunity, related to the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, the actual act as related to that, and then the law. If you go in your book, if you go to page 126, what we try to do here is we try to provide you with a list of those salient entities that can help you to better understand equal employment in the US in particular. So there's the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, there's the Equal Employment Opportunity Act, and then the EEOL, the Equal Employment Opportunity Law. And so we put a link there for you, or where you can find that on the website, on a website, to kind of learn more about that. And oftentimes the idea is not for you to be fluent in that, but at least for you to know where you go to get information related to matters related to employing individuals in your organization. And then what we also provided, which again, this is one of my favorite things that we have in this workbook, you've got all of those statutes related to equal employment opportunity listed there for you. And then we have a description there that kind of guides you on kind of what those are all about. And so we've got the Civil Rights Act of 1866, 1871, and 1964. And then the Equal Pay Act is there, Age Discrimination, Rehabilitation Act, and so on and so forth. And so those are there for you to reference and real important for you to keep in mind as you're working through various matters. I always say when it comes to human resources and personnel administration, if you are not sure, ask the professional. You know, if you're not sure, ask the professional. Because the last thing we want to do is find ourselves in a situation where we are not handling a matter the way in which we should and in the best interest of our nonprofit. And so when you're not sure, reach out to professionals to try to get some guidance, and minimally at least try to reference any law that is in alignment with the matter that you're dealing with. But it is important to do that. And if you don't have a HR personnel representation, if you don't have that on your board, I would highly encourage you to add that type of individual, because if for nothing else, when you have a question, if they're one of your board members, it would be very appropriate for you to reach out to them and inquire with them about various matters. So definitely keep that in mind. And then the next element of the kind of guiding principles and values for doing human resource management and doing personnel administration is the EDI or DEI, depending upon kind of how your organization aligns with equity, diversity, and inclusion. And if you would go with me to page 9 of the Principles and Practices Guide, you should have that. And I don't know, team, if that's something we can pop on the screen if people don't have it. But if you go to page 9, we have as one of our principles and practices, we have equity, diversity, and inclusion as one of our guiding principles for our organization. And so this is in the Principles and Practices Guide that we shared with you in the very first session that we did. And so what we highly encourage is for your organizations is to, as you're putting in place the infrastructure for human resources and personnel administration, as you're putting that in place, we encourage you to infuse in that your philosophy, your policy, if you will, or the way in which you practice EDI and DEI. Now, I do know quite a few funders are now asking for that. They want to know how you are practicing, not that you have a statement written, but how are you actually practicing equity, diversity, and inclusion in your work? And so we encourage you to do that. And this might very well help you as a starting point to begin thinking about, well, how do we infuse EDI in recruitment? Or how do we infuse EDI in retention? Or how do we infuse EDI in reward? That is a very important to take into consideration in terms of how that works. Any questions about EDI before we get into more work related to this? Okay. All right, team, can you take me to slide 12? I don't think I saw anything in the chat or anything like that. So our work related to recruitment, we want to focus on how do we actually write and create a job description. We get that question a lot. How do you go about doing that? And then identifying roles and responsibilities of individuals, of staff. And we're going to actually utilize our worksheet on page 127 and 128, but we're going to start with page 127. And then we also want to focus on compensation in this part of our work. And we're going to look at hiring practices. And we've got some documents that we want to share with you related to living wage. So we're going to start with, if we're going to recruit individuals into our organization, it is important for us to have prepared a job description for them. And so when you look at page 127, we have crafted a just a worksheet here for us to begin to create a job description. And so we're going to work through this together, and we're going to build this out, and then we're going to go on to another topic. So our template has 6 questions that we're answering about this position. One is, what is the title of the position? What is the purpose of this particular job? What will this person do on a daily basis? What skills are necessary to complete the task that they're performing? And then how many hours a day or week are required to complete their work? And then who's going to supervise the person? Now, you could add more questions to this if you'd like, but we're going to start with this. And if we could go to the gallery. Thank you. So go to page 127. And we, if you'd like to use, we put an example of the executive director. So we're all going to do the same one just for the purpose of the exercise. We're all going to do the executive director position of a nonprofit, or president and CEO. I know some nonprofits, that person's title is president and CEO. Some it's just CEO. Some it is co-director, because we have some leadership type organizations, and some it's executive director. The most common that we see, there are 2 most common. The person who is responsible for leading and managing the entire organization is typically titled executive director or president and CEO. So those are the 2 that we see most often. And so I'm going to just go kind of quiet here for a minute and let you begin to fill out this worksheet. So what is the title of the position? We're all going to do executive director. What is the purpose of the position? I want you to kind of make some notes there. What would this person do on a daily basis? Make some notes there. What skills are necessary, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to give us a few minutes to fill out our worksheet. And we do have a break coming up, I promise you. So Okay, so I'm gonna go through each question and just give some highlights, some points in terms of our thinking about this particular position. I do think that oftentimes the average person probably doesn't really understand what what executive directors do. The question really is, what don't we do as executive? That's probably more like it. And you can unmute yourself or you can use the chat as I'm kind of going through. And this is to be a conversation. Oftentimes boards don't know exactly what the executive director does. Staff don't know what the executive director does. And so it's important for all of us to understand that role. This is probably a really good in-house training to do with your staff, because oftentimes if they've never worked for a nonprofit, they don't have a sense of what the person that's in charge of the organization, they don't necessarily know what that involves. So as I'm gonna go through, and team, you can chime in, or colleagues, you can unmute yourself and kind of give us your perspective. So as we're thinking about human resources and personnel administration, the lead personnel in our organization is the ED, right? That's the lead personnel. And so our position title is the executive director. So what is the purpose of the executive director? What is their purpose? Their purpose is to lead and to manage. That's their purpose. Everything related to the nonprofit organization. They are leading and they are managing. That's number two. Number three, they are leading people and they are managing process or policies and procedures. So they're leading people and they're managing policies, processes, and procedures. And then of course, we know there's a whole lot in between that, but that's just real high level. When we are an executive director in that role, that is what we are responsible for. Now let's go a little bit, go a little deeper with what the person is doing on a daily basis. The North Carolina Center for Nonprofits has 12 principles for practice. This is just a reminder, right? Just a reminder. Our 12 principles are, and these are what we consider management functions. You can add or take away from this list. But for number 3, what would this person do on a daily basis? They're leading and they're managing minimally these 12 things: advocacy and civic engagement, board governance, equity, diversity, and inclusion, financial management, fundraising, human resources, information technology, legal compliance and transparency, partnerships and collaboration, program design, management and evaluation, strategic communication, and strategic planning. That's baseline. Now you can add, your nonprofit is unique. All of your organizations are unique and different. So when we answer number 3, what would this person do on a daily basis? Minimally, they're leading and managing those 12. That's foundational. And again, you can add to that. What skills are they using? So here's kind of Dr. Palmer's perspective, right? You can add or take away from this. When we talk about skills, number 1 skill, human relations skill, not human resources skills, human relations skills. So kind of knowing, being able to move from intrapersonal to interpersonal to team to group, being able to navigate relationships, right? Very important. Number 2, community relations. So human relations, inward facing, community relations, outward facing. So being able to manage those, lead and manage relationships that are inward facing and outward facing, right? And then the other thing I would say is some technical skills. You know, technology is pretty important. I mean, how many of us struggle with a digital calendar? Like a calendar that everybody can see, right? I'm raising my hand. You know, we just struggle with just even using that, being able to, we got 20 people on staff, everybody has a calendar, and we got to go in there and figure out where people are, who's taking off and all that. And I don't know about you, Lisa, but you know, I'm dating myself here from a generational standpoint. I'm being left at the starting block because it takes me a minute to get into that, going into this digital thing, and everybody can see this and so on and so forth. I'm going to pause there because I see some agreement kind of showing up in this thing. When it comes to the technology, be honest about what you don't know, executive directors. Just be honest about what you don't know and ask for help from the people that do. That's very important. But those IT skills, those technological skills, we were talking about social media a few minutes ago. Oh my gosh. You know, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. I mean, that's a lot for me. So I'm just saying, when you need help, ask for help. There are people on your staff that can do that kind of stuff in their sleep. And so get the help that you need. And don't hold the rest of us up because we're not getting the technology. Talking to myself. You know, use the technology, and if you're not up to speed, be okay with being vulnerable and saying you just don't know, because that is a big part of that. And then the last thing I gave you, did I give you 3 or 4? I need to give you 4. I gave you human relations, inward facing, community relations, outward facing, technical skills, right? I gave you that. That was 3. The 4th one is, and you're going to love this one, because we're talking about what skills are necessary to complete our task. The 4th one is, it depends. It just depends. It depends on what's going on and what you need. As an executive director, I have found myself doing everything from unlocking the building and cleaning the building to going out and talking to a donor about giving 6 figures. So, you know, it just depends.
And
I'm
keeping
gonna
a variety
pause.
of costumes in your car.
Say again, Lisa.
Keep a variety of change of clothes in your car. Jeans, blazer, skirt, pairs, heels, some sneakers, a shovel. Had all kinds of stuff in my car, baskets.
Absolutely. So, so that was number 4. I want to have a little bit of fun with number 5. You have to put your responses in the chat for me for number 5. How many hours a day or week are required to complete the role of the executive director? I'm just curious.
It should be funny. Whole hours, as many as it takes. 24/7. What happened to self-care, people? Why are we seeing all these hours? What happened to self-care? You have to know when to stop.
My goodness, seriously, this, I know it's hard to believe, but it is a 24 hours a day, 7-day responsibility. Think about it. You're it. You're it. And so that is a reality. And so what we have to do when we are looking at the executive director role, we have to take care of our executive director, and our executive directors have to take care of themselves. So we want to minimize, you want to add to number 5, minimize burnout and encourage balance. Minimize burnout and encourage balance. And executive directors, we also have to realize that we can't do it all. We need help, and we have to engage internally. We have to engage folks in helping us, and externally, we have to engage folks in helping us. And only you can create that. It's up to you how you create that. But that's important to add to number 5 when you are, especially when you're recruiting, right? When you're recruiting and trying to bring on a new executive director. How many of us on the call, you support the executive director? Like you're like their direct support. Can you kind of just give me like use the reaction, like hands up? I'm just trying to, you're like a direct support to the ED. I see Jen, I see Lawana. I'm just trying to gauge how many of you kind of see. I see Vicky. How many of you kind of, oh, Carrie, how many of you are support, or is it, or yeah, okay. And then Megan, Lisa, I see quite a few
Quite a few, yeah.
of folks that are here. So when you are supporting the executive director, and I know all staff do, I get it, all the staff do. But oftentimes there is a person who is the first point of exchange with that ED, if, you know, keeping up with where they are and helping them be where they need to be and providing them with information and knowing where everything is. That is an important person to have on your team, EDs. That's an important person to have on your team. Your go-to person is important. And when you don't have that, you're really working by yourself. And I know some of us, we don't even have that as a resource. It's us and that's it. So try to rely on your board too. And thank you all for sharing, for those of you who do that directly. So in terms of, I would just make a note by this number 4, whether or not the ED in your organization has a staff person that really does help to support them in their work. That's important to keep in mind. But you know, again, minimize burnout and encourage balance. That's very important when it comes to the schedule. And then lastly, who will supervise this person? The board of directors supervises the executive director. Executive directors, be sure that your board help them to make sure that they're doing performance evaluations and they're checking in with you formally, 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 that they're checking in with you every year. Make sure they're doing that in some form. It is so easy for boards to not do that, especially when you've got an executive director that is doing the job well, I'll just say, or appearing to do the job well. So sometimes that can be challenging, but who supervises the ED is the board of directors. Okay, so that answers our, Karen, is your hand up for supporting staff or is your hand up for a question? You're good? Okay, so that is that is page 127. The next item, we're not gonna fill this in today, but this is here for your use, page 128. Now what we can do is we can take our answers to the question and we can fill in the job description using this template, okay? We can use this template to kind of fill this in. You can modify this, you can change it how you see fit. And you can use this for any position. We just use the executive director for practice on here. There are a couple of resources that are available to you. And Rebecca, I'm going to let you talk about or mention the salary and benefits report. So in your handout, in your wraparound handout, you have a link for hiring practices. That's on page 126 with the EEOC. So that's there. You have a link about an article related to living wage. You have a link to the living wage calculator. And you also have a link to the salary and benefits report. And you have a sample personnel policies and employee handbook. So we've provided those links for you that you can utilize to build out your infrastructure for human resources. Rebecca, I'm going to let you share the salary and benefits report.
Sure. Just real quick, the center partners with Association Trends and Columbia Books to put together a salary and benefits report. It's updated via survey every 2 years, and you can download. I'll put the link in the chat for you all if you're interested in looking into this. You can download for the state of North Carolina. You can download for the country as a whole. We offer discounts for both members, and then also if you participate in the salary week or the survey, we get a list from Association Trends of which organizations from North Carolina participate in the survey when it comes out, and we push it out on all of our platforms because the more people that put information into that, the more robust that salary and benefits information is. So we have a vested interest in getting folks to participate in that survey every other year. So if you participate, we have a list of that. We can refer to that. You can get a discount. If you're a member, you get a discount on top of that. And makes it a little bit more affordable. But this is one way that you can make sure that you are providing salaries and benefits that are in line with what others are providing within the state, so that you're competitive and that you're attracting the right candidates. The other thing I'll say too, and I don't know if we have this coming up later on, is that our jobs board is probably one of the most visited pages on our website. We get tons of eyeballs on that page, and it's really a great resource. Our members get a huge discount whenever you post for a 60-day listing. And so that's another great resource for you if you're looking for quality candidates in the sector. It's a great way to kind of get your offerings or your openings out there.
Okay. So again, those resources are available to you. It is important if you have both, that's great. So if you have a policies and procedures for human resources overall, right? All things related to personnel administration, there's a sample there, but minimally you should have an employee handbook on some level. That you can share with employees on those salient matters that come up routinely, so that folks know, kind of how they're supposed to function as it relates to the employee handbook. So minimally, that is important to have. I'm going to cover two more items, and then we're going to take a break. Team, if we could go to slide 13, and then we're going to take a break. And so that was all about recruitment. Now, in terms of retention, so background checks, conflict of interest and confidentiality, employee benefits, that's an interesting topic for nonprofits, employee relations, employee retention in general, the employee handbook, we mentioned that, having a grievance process, and to the degree that you can, begin to think about succession planning. Yes, as it relates to the ED, but also other key positions in your organization. So what would you do if those positions were vacant? How would you, bring resources in as it relates to that? Background checks. Every organization is different. Typically, we subscribe to firms that do the background checks for us. And so that is a part of yes, the recruitment, but also the retention, because oftentimes it might be necessary to do background checks more than just when people are hired. Some organizations build that into their just kind of overall personnel administration. So that's important. Conflict of interest and confidentiality. This is important because many of our nonprofit organizations are working in the social service, human service, case management, providing that type of service to folks. And oftentimes HIPAA is a part of that, but we definitely want individuals that are handling information about clients, about participants in services, to have them sign conflict of interest and confidentiality agreements. You can also, we mentioned our legal compliance checklist from the center. We mentioned that early on when we talked about board governance. But that's another tool that you can use for that in terms of just making sure that staff, board, and volunteers are signing annually a conflict of interest and or confidentiality agreement about information. Boards of directors are expected to do that. And Rebecca just popped that into the chat, the link to the salaries and benefits link that she was talking about. So that's important in terms of that. So background checks, conflict of interest and confidentiality. There should be a way or an approach that you're taking to that, especially because a lot of our nonprofits are working with vulnerable populations of people. And that becomes very, very significant in that regard. Something that I don't want to leave out related to compensation, we have a handout in your workbook on page 129, just a visual to give you a frame for thinking about what determines compensation to just align with that report. And here's what we know. We know that it is difficult for our nonprofits to offer competitive wages. Like we have to work really, really hard to establish benefit packages and offer compensation at the market rate. And so we hear that quite a bit. I would just encourage us to, when we are writing grants in particular, to be real honest with funders as to what positions really cost, as opposed to not doing that. That's very, very important. But we've provided that framework on page 129 to just give you some guidance on determining compensation and how you might begin to think about that. So that's important. Last thing I want to share before I break is on page 130, and this is related to employee benefits. So while we might not always, and if we could go back to the gallery view, that'd be great. While we might not always be able to cash out or to offer salaries and benefits at a level that we would prefer, or that is getting us at market rate, there's some other things that we could do to make the role more attractive, right? To have the position be more attractive. So we can think about the work schedule, and maybe we have flexible work schedules. Since COVID, working virtually is also something that works for some positions. It doesn't work for all positions, but it does work for some. So that's something to think about. Building in some way of providing a outlet for self-care for the folks that work with us. That's another affordable benefit that we might be able to do. Not just encouraging work-life balance, but actually creating ways in which our staff can engage in work-life balance. That could be helpful. Add some fun. That's always, but fun that's fun for your staff and not just fun for us. Because what might be fun for me might not be fun for staff. So we want to inquire with them about that and make that available to them. Professional development, that's another offering that you might be able to afford as it relates to that. I know some of your organizations are members of the North Carolina Center for Nonprofits. And so there are professional development opportunities made available there. Spend some time on the website, get acquainted with what those resources are. There are even pro bono resources that are available. So pay attention to that. And then discounts. And you might say, now, what do you mean by that? Well, if you're in a community where you know some other nonprofits that offer something that might be considered a benefit for your staff, then you might want to talk to them about collaborating or partnering somehow. What always comes to mind for me is YMCAs, YWCAs. You know, they have all kinds of resources there. Maybe there's a way that you can, you know, collaborate on something that maybe your staff could get a discount on if they're needing those kind of services or making those resources available to them. Jamika, I see your hand.
Yes, ma'am. Is it possible that you could kind of give a little bit of a example for making space for self-care?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I think self-care is coupled with two other things that are on well, four other things that are on this list. Coupled with flexible work schedule, coupled with work-life balance and fun, right? So if you bring those three things together and ask your staff, what do they consider to be a way for them to take care of themselves? And then make way or space for them to be able to do that. So recently I was working with a CEO of a nonprofit out of state. And we've been working with her management team, just building their capacity. We were in an in-person meeting and we had to work on policies and procedures. Not a fun task, right? And so we were working on that. And what I noticed that day is that everybody was just like, they were just tired. It was a Friday, you know, I was from out of town. I was all ready to go and, you know, let's get this work done. And I was looking at the group and I was like, these folks, they need some self-care, right? So we got through the day, and I said to the CEO in our debrief, I said, tonight when you go home, you need to send an email to your management team and you need to give them all a day off next week. Not 2 weeks from now, not 3 weeks from now. They need to tell you by Sunday morning, because if you're on the management team, you're reading your emails all day, every day, right? So I said, tonight when you go home, you need to say, hey, there was 4 of them, 5, to pick a day. Don't pick the same day, but pick a day. You need to take off. And what I also said to her was, and they have to promise you they're not going to do anything for someone else on that day off. Now, can you control that? Probably not, but it would be in there. So, you know, they all took the day. And when we talked on Monday morning, she said to me, oh my gosh, she said they had emailed me back by Saturday morning. And they had been texting what day are you taking? Well, what day are you taking? And they took the day, self-care. So it doesn't have to be this kind of monumental kind of thing per se, but in that moment, they needed some time. Is that helpful? Yes. So make it doable for your organization. And it just changed the climate. Just changed the whole atmosphere coming into the next week. So we as the folks that are in charge, right, if we can influence that in any way, I think it's important that we do so. All right, we're going to take a break. It is 10:47. And so, team, are we thinking 11 o'clock? Okay, all right. We're going to take a break. We'll come back, do a little bit of reflection, and jump into our next work that we're going to do. I'm going to give folks about another minute. I know how it is trying to transition back. It's graduation day, y'all. It is graduation day. Have you ever thought about like how many graduations you've participated in on any level? What about pre-K? Did anybody graduate from pre-K? I didn't do daycare. That wasn't a thing when I was coming along. You
Long ago that
stayed
was
with
my
a relative. You didn't do daycare.
How long ago that was for me to remember if you did pre-K or not?
Did anybody do like pre-K graduation or kindergarten?
My daughter did.
Yeah, we done with the peoples, yeah.
Like my son, I remember my son did, but I didn't do those kinds of programs when I was.
I don't recall doing those kind of programs in the 70s either. I think that's a new thing.
It was called nursery school. That's what Dory said.
Oh, okay. Well, look, I didn't do summer camp. Summer camp was in the yard. It was outside at home. So I don't know anything about all that kind of stuff. Well, welcome back from your break. We are going to do some work related to employee relations and retention, okay? And so you have a worksheet on page 132. And we are still focusing on our topic related to retention. And again, oftentimes it's difficult for us in the nonprofit sector, especially some of our smaller grassroots nonprofit agencies, one of a kind. It's oftentimes difficult to package, to have benefits, right, that we can package and offer up to staff. And then also in terms of reward, sometimes that can be kind of challenging, like what can we do? And so what we built into our work today is for us to go into breakout rooms. And together, we're gonna craft some examples of employee relations options or strategies and employee retention strategies. Now, when you look at page 131, we have kind of given you or provided this silhouette of a person. And when we think about employee relations, what we're suggesting is that we consider the experience of the person, the expertise that they have, their educational background, and most of all, the position that they hold in your organization. So the position that they hold. Also, when it comes to employee relations, it's important for us to cultivate with our employees their understanding of the mission and the vision of the organization. Like, what are we here to do in a more holistic way? And then what we want to do with our employees is we want to partner and collaborate. And that's kind of what we have on the arm and hands of this person, is the partner, them as a partner and them as a collaborator with the mission and vision in their heart. That's why we kind of have that in the middle, the mission and vision in their heart. And that headspace is their position and what they do and what they bring and all of that. For the 2 feet, what we have identified is that we want to cultivate self-directed individuals and self-motivated individuals. We want to cultivate that in the individuals that we have in our organization. Many times in a nonprofit setting, when it comes to being self-directed and self-motivated, we are all doing a variety of roles, like we're functioning in a variety of roles. And while my job title might be this, a particular thing, I'm oftentimes being asked to do other things that I might not as an employee perceive to be what? My job. And so, but we know that in the nonprofit space and in a nonprofit work setting, especially your human services, health services, mental health services, social services, addressing homelessness. I mean, all of the housing, all of these areas in which individuals that we serve, things are just changing all the time. And some things we predict and some things we are aware of and some things just kind of happen. And we have to kind of, as Lisa said, have a change of clothes in the car But the change of clothes might be 5 different types of changes of clothes because we don't know where we might find ourselves or what we might be doing. And we have to help our employees to understand that because they don't always understand it. And especially if they've never worked with a nonprofit before. So sometimes it is, this is what a nonprofit does. This is how it works. And this is how we work, so to speak. So this image that we've provided, employee relations program, we've aligned it with kind of the total person approach, right? That when folks come into the organization, they're bringing their whole self. And what we want to do is cultivate these attributes of the person that we've got illustrated in these different parts of the anatomy. So that's that part of our work. Also, when you look at page 132, we've broadened that a little bit, right? So yes, we're talking about employees, yes, which is our paid staff, the number one item there. But we're also talking about volunteers because you may not be aware, but when it comes to volunteers, human resource and personnel administration policies and procedures align with having volunteers on staff as well. So that's important to keep in mind. And then the board of directors, they're volunteers as well. So how do we have, what do we do to have very kind of strong, helpful, fruitful employee relations with them? What can we do? And then the program participants, the individuals that are participating in our programs. It's important for us to have good relationships with them as well. And then donors. So we've kind of stretched it just a little bit with the program participants and donors, but we want you to think about how the very things that we're trying to do to have healthy relationships with our employees and retain them, it can also apply down this list of stakeholders, okay? And so what we want you to do, we provided the employee retention information. You can reference your wraparound document that we provided there. And then we talked about specifically some affordable benefits on page 130. And then also taking into consideration the total person approach on 131. So when you go in your breakouts, what you're going to provide are some examples of employee relations for each stakeholder group. And how do you retain them for each stakeholder group? Make sense? So relationships and retention. Relationships, employee relations, employee retention. And like I said, we kind of stretched it a little bit by including the program participants and donors, but we wanted you to think about that too, in terms of that. The paid staff, the volunteers and the board of directors, inward facing, right? Program participants, donors, a little outward facing in terms of some options that we might have. So Rebecca, I'm gonna pass it over to you to put us in breakout spaces. And again, your task is that you're gonna identify examples of employee relations and employee retention. You're gonna kind of come up with what some of those examples might be.
For each of those stakeholders on that worksheet?
Each of the stakeholder groups on that sheet.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how many minutes, Dr. Palmer? We didn't put in the notes, 10?
It's 11:10. So let's do 10 minutes.
Okay.
I think that's good.
I'll
How
open
many
up the
people
rooms.
will be in each group?
We'll have 7 in each of 5 groups.
Let's do 15 minutes. 15.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right, I will open up the rooms and we'll see back here in a few.
Thank you. Everyone. I think we had 5 groups, and so just want to get some ideas around or ideas that you came up with. And the way we want to do this, we had 5 groups and we've got 5 stakeholder groups. So if each group could decide which one you want to report out about, that would be great. And I'm gonna go ahead and get a name. So group one, and that can be whichever group we want to be group one, really, but
So I was
Really
in group 4. I'm gonna talk first. So that
so Alicia, you're group 4?
I am group 4. Yes, ma'am.
1, 2, wait, hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4. Alicia. Okay.
And we actually really only got through paid staff. So we'll talk about paid staff.
First one to volunteer gets to choose which one they want to do. I like it.
Well, I'm not sure
Right.
what group I was in, but I was with Beth and
I think we were 2.
okay, we were 2. Okay, thanks, honey. We did paid staff and volunteers, so we can hit volunteers.
All right. So Carrie and Beth. Okay. All
There were
right.
others. I'm sorry, guys. I didn't mean to leave you out.
Oh, all right, that group. And then which group wants to take board of directors? Nobody wants to take.
Well, if they were anything like us, we got stuck so much on the top 2, we didn't hit them, but I
Okay,
mean, I can
Yo,
speak to some of them.
when Alicia mentioned that they only got to paid staff, I saw a whole lot of heads nodding that everybody else was in the same boat. I know our group was.
okay. So did anybody get to board of directors? Maybe that should be the question.
Two did not. That helps.
Group 1 was just starting.
So no one got the board. Okay, so did anybody get the program participants? Nobody? Did anybody get to donors? What? Okay. So then Alicia, your group will take paid staff, and then Carrie and Beth volunteers. The group 3, do you want paid staff or volunteers? No? Okay. We'll go with these 2 groups then. All right, and then I'll comment on the others. How about that? Sounds good to me. All right, so we're gonna hear some employee relations kind of ways that we can do that for paid staff and employee retention from Alicia's group.
Does anyone want to talk from Alicia's group, or is Alicia just talking? Because I have no problem with either, but I don't want to cut anybody off from my group either. So we talked about, I'll start there. We talked about employee retention a lot and focusing on, so Triad Health Project just started committees in-house to kind of help gauge what else our staff is interested in. Particularly because case management can get so heavy. We wanted to give them opportunities to do outreach or to spend time at the day center while they were still, quote unquote, on the clock. Just to kind of break up the everyday routine. Someone else in our group talked about yoga Wednesdays that they go to. There was an employee of the month, having flexible schedules, a lunch and lean instead of a lunch and learn, where they ask very specific questions. Anyone else from our group want to add to that?
Okay, all right. Did anybody else want to add to paid staff, employee relations, retention in general? Did anybody else want to add to that particular one? Maybe something that came up in your group.
One thing we discussed in group 2 was just about offering other, of course we offer standard benefits like your 401k and your health insurance benefits and such, but offering paid vacations and holidays or extended leave times around the holidays. And our organization is doing that, has historically done that, but I don't think that that's typical. So that's a really great thing that we're able to do that doesn't cost the organization a lot of money in regards to, salaries for staff, but I thought that was a really great benefit that we offer, that, people could consider, especially if you have the ability around the holidays to give people more time off other than just Christmas Day or Thanksgiving Day.
I think that's a really good one too, because most of the community is kind of shut down during that time. And so if we can encourage folks to really take a significant amount of time, you talk about self-care, things are kind of quiet. Now, if you're running a shelter, that's a little bit different. It depends on what kind of services you're providing. But, if you can say to your staff, hey, we're all going to do this, right? That's something that you can do. And it doesn't cost you that much out of the gate. So that's a really good one. That extended holiday time off is a really, really good one. I saw book club in the chat. Lisa, you were going to say?
I was just going to say also too with holidays, what we do at the center, which was new for me because I hadn't done this before, other positions I've been in, but we vote on what holidays our agency, our employees want. Not everybody celebrates the same holidays, but to make sure you're being inclusive for everyone. We've started in voting, and then whatever we vote on for the year, that's what it is. And then we also do weekly morale surveys with our staff, just making it anonymous, trying to get we ask pointed questions in the survey. And then that also helps to give a direction of what the staff, or what they're thinking and what's going on. Just a couple of added.
I like that. Now that's neat, the kind of polling the staff for morale for the week, because you could do that through a Survey Monkey link, and then everybody can see the results. And I mean, that's a real good idea. Volunteers, that would be Beth.
One of the things.
I don't know who that was.
Did someone, Gwen, were you trying to say something? No.
Maybe it was a mistake.
Oh, okay. I thought Gwen was speaking. So,
yes, I was just adding that we offer floating holidays too. So that yeah.
Okay.
Floating holidays and a retirement opportunities.
Okay. Okay.
We're gonna hit the next group, volunteers. I like I said, I had several people in my group, but I wrote down a lot of notes, so I'll just go ahead and start. But the one thing I wanted to share from the paid staff was that Lawana from One Place, she actually told us that they have a 17% cafeteria plan. I don't mean to call her out or anything, but I think it was actually a really great benefit. It was amazing. So it's a 17% cafeteria plan, which allows employees to put money wherever they need it. So if they need it for daycare, it goes into daycare. If they need it for she can actually speak on this if she's on it, but I mentioned like adult daycare. You may need it for aging parents or whatever the case may be, healthcare, whatever it is, but they actually allow you to take that 17% and put it where you need it, which is, I think, a huge benefit. I've not heard a lot of that going on here in North Carolina, so
okay.
just thought I'd share that. And then from the volunteer aspect, Beth was actually able to help us quite a bit. So one of the things that we do what she's doing to recruit and retain volunteers, and her organization depends greatly on their volunteer contribution. So one of the ways is to actually hit them where it counts, in their stomachs. So feeding people is a great way to bring volunteers in and say thank you. Also an annual award banquet for saying thank you to volunteers, just having something where they're acknowledged and celebrated, because I think volunteers hours should be celebrated, and we should all be giving. And not just of our own selves and lower salaries, but just helping other organizations. So, and then I actually added towards the end when we were just getting cut off, I think what we should do is use our partner organizations, and we need to be looking at AARP for potential volunteers. You know, they're actually individuals that are looking to work and give back. They may have retired and they want to work. So we're actually getting ready to do that. So it's like a senior internship. So that's what we had in our group.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. And I just want to kind of add a couple things related to board of directors, program participants, and donors. We actually talked a little bit about donors in the previous in the fundraising topic. But in terms of board of directors, so another way of saying this is board relations and board retention. And the main thing that I will say here is, give me something to do as your board member. Like, don't just let me be on the board and don't give me anything to do, because I'm probably not going to volunteer to add something else to do. But if you ask me, I am probably going to say yes, because I'm on the board and I want to be engaged. And so a lot of times we as board members have very full schedules. But those things that we're committed to, we are committed to. And so, but if you're letting me be on the board and you don't give me anything to do, or you don't encourage that, then I'm probably just going to do the minimum. And it's not that I'm not interested or that I don't care, and that's not it. So that's important, just overall. It builds relationships. You can tap into what I naturally bring, right? And that can benefit. And then in terms of program participants, it's good to build in organization-wide opportunities for individuals who are living in your programs, right? They're existing in your programs. And so so what we can do is we can reach out and create ways to try to connect with them. There's an organization that I'm familiar with, and they do an annual festival on the premises. And the festival is just for participants. So they're inviting the participants in the programs to come, and they're loving on them and all that kind of stuff at that festival. So that's a way to do that. And then of course with donors, the main thing here is that ask the donor what's appropriate for them in terms of how they want to engage. Some donors do not want to build a relationship. They just want to give, do what they're doing, and that's it. But there are some who are just like our board members. If you inquire with them, they may very well show up to do some things that you hadn't even thought of. But reaching out and asking them is very important. So in terms of that.
One more thing, Dr. Palmer?
Yes.
Also, too, which has been helpful, I'm sure some of you have done this. If you're having any kind of community event like Dr. Palmer spoke of, or whatever it is, invite your funders to them. They may or may not come, but they just might. So your donors, whom obviously you're going to invite your volunteers, your staff, your board of directors, particularly, but try to reach out to your funders and see if they show up, because they will appreciate that as well.
Exactly. I would agree. The next thing I want to do, and team, I know I don't have this in the note, but can we go to at the page, slide 14, and it's under employee handbook, and there's a link there that says table of contents. Can we show that real quick for the group? So we're moving now into out of the employee relations, employee retention. There are various ways that we can do that and it not cost a lot to the agency. We just have to think about it and be innovative and creative in that. But there's another part of the retention that's important, and that is the handbook. So go to slide 13, I'm sorry. Look at the bottom there, and it's the link under table of contents in the notes. It is under table of contents in the notes, and it's employee handbook. Thank you. If you could just go to the table of contents, which is what we want to just kind of show, to just kind of highlight. So, thank you. So section 1 of this template is about general employment policies. And so you can kind of see just some elements of that section. Go to the next section. I just want to give and then conflict of interest is there, whistleblower policy, non-disclosure is there too. So that's section 1. In section 2, employment status. So whether an employee is just showing up and maybe there's a probation, but then also whether or not your organization has part-time, full-time, exempt, non-exempt, that information is there. And then in section 3, for this example, is recruiting and hiring. And so these are some elements of the recruiting and hiring process that would be in your employee handbook. In terms of position descriptions and how we promote and so on and so forth is there. Section 4 is compensation and salary administration. Section 5 is general workplace policies. Thank you. So you've got information there about that. Section 6 is employee benefit programs. Section 7 is leave. Section 8 is property that the organization has, use of technology. That's a big one. That social media policy. If you haven't thought about that, that is probably very important. I know in the recruitment, we're using platforms like LinkedIn and Facebook, and we're doing research on folks just by looking at their social media traffic and what's going on there. So to have that policy in place, I think is important. And I know it may sound like it's not as important, but it is, and that is using your phone while working. You know, walking around with your phone in your hand all day. I mean, I'm just saying, it's essential in some cases, but we have to just kind of be mindful of what is our policy related to that. Section 9, employee performance and workplace conduct. Section 10, once a person decides that they're going to leave the organization. And then section 11, acknowledging that they have actually received the handbook and, you know, signing off on that. And so this link is in the wraparound, so you can see that. So there are 11 sections to this handbook. And of course, you would be left to decide what works for you or what information is relevant for you. Thank you. Thank you, team. In your wraparound also, you have a resource for a grievance process, and you also have a resource for succession planning. Now, the thing about succession planning that's important to keep in mind, and I said this kind of going into either the break or the breakouts, succession plan not just for the executive director, succession plan for other staff, especially key staff. There's no bigger challenge than a key staff person leaving that has been there 2 decades. And they have all that organizational history and know-how and understanding, and we don't have a way that we can capture that, or we're not keeping track of how impactful that is to have that resource available. So that's important to kind of keep in mind. And we've got a resource there for you for that. And so that is, so we've done recruitment, and that is retention. And we're going to move into reward. Okay. But before we do that, we had two folks put something in the chat. Gwen, you asked a question about Cash App. Is Gwen? Gwen? you had a question about using Cash App,
Yeah,
whether or not that was credible.
yes.
That
Yes, I've, yes.
okay.
I have been, yeah, some of my board members have one opinion, and then I'm getting some, as to, it not being a more professional way to, solicit for monies. And so we were trying to decide if we should add that layer or not. Because on one hand, they're saying that that is not a professional way to request funds. And then on another hand, I'm told that that is what a lot of folks use if they want to
So one
do
of,
any financial activities.
um,
So I was trying to get, yeah.
so one of your colleagues
I
has,
try.
one of your colleagues has noted that that's a convenient way. It's a convenient payment portal for people to be able to purchase something using Cash App or make a donation. Is there any other organization that uses Cash App that are here? Is anybody, what are your thoughts about it?
So I've been using Cash App mainly through my church. So far, my church has been the biggest supporter of my organization, and a lot of them are already using Cash App because that's how they do their tithes and offerings. So I have been using that, but I don't think it's a long-term solution. By going through this course and learning from others, I think there should be a better platform for it, just so that I can be able to manage it well. You can't really, I mean, you can go back and look at what was given, but if there's something that can generate a report for you automatically so that you don't have to go back and try to figure things out, it's probably a better process. So starting off, I have been using it just to start getting something in, but I don't think it's a long-term solution, in my opinion.
Yeah, the Trad Health Project has used it few and far between when we're doing outreach at nightclubs and people just want to donate, then we'll, have a QR code for something just quick and easy for the younger generation that want to give us money.
Okay. So here I go again. It depends, right? It depends. It depends. I do think I'm going to lean more towards what Christina shared. However, it can be an option, but it's probably not a long-term type of option. You want to be using a platform that helps you become more efficient and become build out your apparatus for collecting dollars digitally or collecting funds digitally. So as far as credibility, I mean, it's credible enough for me to buy something with it. So it's probably credible enough for me to make a donation. I mean, but from a management standpoint, it's not going to yield the options that a donor management platform will yield, will provide for you. So, and then there was another, Melissa shared an article in the chat with everyone, and it's titled Power Sharing. So I just want to draw your attention to that. And I don't know, Melissa, if you had a comment. If not, I'm going to move on to the next topic because we got a graduation to get to. And so I don't want us to run out of time before we get to the commencement and all that stuff as it relates to that. But she did share that in the chat with everyone. Team, if we could go on to slide, I think it's going to be 15 regarding the reward. So some things to think about in terms of reward. And again, we provided these resources for you in the wraparound document. Focusing on career development with your staff, and especially what I would consider to be your management team is there. And then we put some leadership attributes on page 133 of our workbook. Professional development is important. We talked about that as an affordable benefit, and so we provided a link there for you as well. But I do want to hone in on performance evaluation. It is very important for us to do and engage in performance evaluation for our staff, in particular, and to not let that go a long time without doing that. It serves as accountability to staff. What I oftentimes see in our nonprofit organizations, especially our grassroots ones that might be a little smaller, is that they may not have the staff, right, to actually have a formal way of managing all that's related to personnel administration. But we should be giving feedback to staff on a regular basis, and it should be planned. And so that's real important to keep in mind. And what we shared here is, in thinking about that, is looking at maybe a trait-based or a behavior-based or a result-based format or evaluation structure that you use. So you are evaluating the employee based on characteristics related to their job, right? How, characteristics of who they are related to their job, like education, expertise, and so on. And then, of course, behavior-based in terms of the actions, how I actually act and function in my role. And then, of course, results. Are they producing? Are they high performing? And so in terms of thinking about what tools to use, I would also advise, if you are subscribing to a firm for your HR and personnel resources, they have tons of examples that are a part of what you're already paying for. So I wouldn't necessarily go outside of that if you already have that resource at your disposal. So I would just say, just keep that in mind. And we did already talk about the compensation review. Rebecca shared with you the report and the resource that we have. We do want to talk about the status of workers as it relates to independent contractors versus exempt. And I'm going to let Lisa kind of pick up here and just share. And we did put a resource there for you too for that.
Right. And so some of you, I'm sure, are quite familiar with independent contractors and exempt. So, if you are paying an independent contractor, they are working for themselves. They should make their own hours. They should bring their own work equipment. I mean, it's going to be up to you if you let them use anything that's within your office, but they're totally self-employed. And in a sense, they're not working as a paid employee. So that's pretty straightforward. So hopefully you're able to, if you have any questions on that, let me know, or just ask. And then again, for exempt and non-exempt, I'm sure you all know, if you are an exempt employee, that means that you are salaried. You're usually in an administrative or an executive role. You don't get paid for overtime. Your hours are pretty much what your hours are. When it goes back to whenever the job gets done, when we talked about that earlier, as an exempt employee. Now, there's some changes that have recently come out in the federal statute in reference to this, for federal and state laws about this. We being the center, we'll be having a town hall meeting, so to speak, from our policy director, David Heinen. This is on the 20th, and then another repeat on the 26th. Usually registration will come through our policy and update newsletter, but if you have not received that or do not get it for some reason, please let us know if you're interested in listening in, because I think it's very important, because it'll affect all nonprofits that have exempt or non-exempt employees, obviously. The one on the 20th, I believe, will be from 10 to 11:30, and the one on the 26th will be 9:30 to 11. Correct me if I'm wrong, staff, but I believe that's what it is. So if you can listen in, because again, there are some updates to these laws that are coming out, and so that way you'll be aware of all of those stipulations. I think also too, we've included some links in your handouts, just as we've said before, that give you guidance to both of these statutes. Dr. Plum, I think it's on.
Thank you. So human resources, recruitment, retention, reward. That is kind of been our work in that space today. We're going to transition into graduation. And so team, if I could go to, can you take me where the map is? I want us to take a quick break before we do that. Oh, here we go.
And then also I want to bring to your attention, Rebecca just put into the chat the registration form for the DOL overtime rule updates that will be presented from the center. So if you're interested, just go ahead and fill that out. Sorry, Dr. Palmer, just want to fill
No,
that.
no worries. We've shared with you each session, our Nonprofit Management Institute member benefits. And so here we're highlighting some human resources benefits that are listed here. And then also the publications that are listed here. So here's some resources that if you are a member of the North Carolina Center for Nonprofits, here are the Nonprofit Management Institute, here are member benefits for that. So keep that in mind. Some additional ones is, again, we've been sharing these of resources that are available to you. I'm going to come back to this slide, folks, I think. Here. All right. So when we started our institute, we asked you to plot on the map where you are located. So we're going to end with where we began. And so if you could use help me team, the annotation function to kind of show us or tell us where are you located in terms of county in North Carolina. So I see some populating going on. So we can see where we are, because we are about 40 folks on this in this session, in this institute today. Wow. A lot of central North Carolina, huh? Kind of, sort of. Thank you. So this is where we all are. And I'm in Guilford County, by the way. Our center team is in Wake County or is it Durham County or is it?
Orange.
Orange County, sorry. So.
How do you do that?
Yeah, some folks are looking for that reaction. So we are graduating from all over the state of North Carolina. Thank you all so much for participating in the Nonprofit Management Institute. We are going to transition into graduation. So we're going to give you all a 2 minutes at 12 o'clock. We are going to start our graduation, and team, we can go back to gallery and you can give instructions on graduation.
Yeah, let's go ahead and come back. Let's plan to come back at 12:05. We'll give a little bit longer of a break for folks to get reset for graduation. I'll put the link in the chat, or we'll put the link in the chat here for your background if you want to download one of the ones from our extranet. It's a great way to just update your background. And for those of you that don't know how to do that, you can always go to those 3 dots next to your photo. I'll do it right now as I'm sharing it, so I remember to do it. You can download the background, then you when you go to choose virtual background, you can upload one to there if you need it. I'll go ahead and pick one right now, and I can see it on a preview on my screen, and then there it is coming up behind me. So let me put that real quick in
That's an example of one of those things that goes really quickly with the younger person on staff. It's one of those examples as I'm still looking for the click virtual background.
You can
I'm
do
just-
it. I know you can.
I know.
Those three, do you see those three dots next to your photo?
Yeah, I was just messing.
Oh, yeah. If you don't want to do it or you can't figure it out, please do not stress. Please do not stress. That's the last thing we want. We don't want to go into graduation being stressed. We just got through almost 6 sessions, so it's a great accomplishment. Yeah. So we'll go ahead and take that break now. And we'll come back at 12:05 and we'll kick off for graduation then.
Just like they say, adulting is hard, so is technology.
Absolutely.
All right, where's our music?
He's pulling up music for us as we get rolling. People are coming back in. Let me know if you need the link, Leslie.
Thank you, proud Dr. Palmer, such a proud parent of all these folks. Well, great. Well, welcome to graduation. Congratulations, you guys, you made it through. You must be, I hope it's a very proud moment for you. We certainly at the center hope you cherish the fruits of all of your hard work. And I hope that the Nonprofit Management Institute will help improve what you're trying to do with all of your organizations. So again, congratulations and happy graduation. Just to give you an idea of what the program will look like for the next 30 minutes. Again, I'm Lisa Reed with the center. We have Dr. Palmer with us as well. We have our commencement address. We talked about succession plan today, and we have our very own transitioning CEO that will give her last commencement address for our group. In case you all didn't know, Jean Tedger will be retiring from the center at the end of the year. We'll have the conferring of our certificates and a viewing of the graduation video that hopefully most of you had taken the time to just do a quick snippet on the montage that Rebecca sent out, and then we'll have a closing. Next slide. I want to take a quick minute to thank our team here and our supporting team. So obviously I mentioned Jean Tedrell, Dr. Palmer, myself, and then we have Rebecca and Leslie who did all the extra hard technology work behind the scenes to keep us moving. So definitely big thank you to them as well. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to Jean Tedrell.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you for acknowledging that I'm in transition. I think that is a daily reminder, and it's quite bittersweet. So I am very excited to be here with all of you, and it may be the last time I have the opportunity to address the graduating class of Nonprofit Management Institute. So it's an honor for me to be here with you. Kudos and congratulations to all of you. You did it. I think I've heard Dr. Palmer say on more than one occasion, this is a marathon, not a sprint. So you got to sort of steady yourself and keep yourself in good shape to keep going. I have about 5 comments that I would like to make. One is remember your why. Another is continue to grow personally and professionally. Third, lead from the seat you're in. Fourth, live into your leadership role. And 5, find ways to practice self-care. So remembering your why. Why did you come here today? Why do you get up every morning and do the heavy lifting that I know you do? Your why can be deeply, and probably is deeply personal. Your lived experiences bring you to the work you do every day. It is often difficult, and it is even often rewarding and soul satisfying. I've worked in the nonprofit sector now for more than 40 years. And I think one of the things I've always appreciated is that when I put my feet on the floor in the morning, I am sure most days that I am doing meaningful work, that I am living into my purpose for my life. I try to remember all the administrative, operational, resource management aspects of my job, that they are very necessary, very critical, but they are not the essence of my why. There are means to achieve and fulfill my purpose, but passion and mission can be lost without good management and operations. Both are essential. When we focus on both, we are fulfilling our purpose. You are, and I am. It's being able to manage the tension between my personal passion and that operations management side of the work we do is really part of why we're here, right? So continuing to grow personally and professionally. What you're doing here is evidence of your commitment to the work that you're doing. We know that this work is difficult. We know that we don't always have all the answers. I like to say that over my 40 years, I probably made every mistake there is to be made, and my success is in having survived. But the development, this professional development can be as intensive as a graduate degree, as exciting and valuable as this institute is. It can be as simple as taking the time you need each week to read and reflect. Remember that being busy is not always the same as being productive. So take the time that you need to not just be busy, but to be productive. Value the time that you bring and the time that you spend on the work that you do. The value that you bring to the organization is your time, your talent, your expertise. Never undervalue that. Remember that your organization is a reflection of who you are and all of what you do. The volunteers and the staff, they need support, affirmation, and capacity building. Remember, while this work is important about what you do, it's not all about you. Remember to stop and say thank you to those with whom you work. Nonprofit work is a team sport, and none of it can go it alone. At least we cannot go it alone to be successful. You are all leaders, but lead from the seat that you're in. Know what your responsibilities are. Understand your personal vision and bring your organization to a shared vision. Know what you know and accept that what you don't know and that you don't know everything you need to do this job. If you are already executive directors or in senior management, you know that each day brings new challenges, often unseen. If you're an emerging leader, reach out, find a mentor, talk with others in leadership positions, and just really take the time again to learn where you're going, understand where you're going, and attach yourself to people who are going in a positive direction alongside you or that you can follow. And be ready to pivot. My guess is that you do this every day. If you're here today, pat yourself on the back because you have been leading. You've been leading your team from the seat you're in, and given the current circumstances, you too have survived. What is your leadership role? What is your leadership style? You can live into your leadership role. Just because Susie Q next door does something one way doesn't mean that it's the right way for you to do it. Know your way. Recognize the leadership in those with whom you serve. Each of us and each on your team can be a leader, can lead and can be a leader. Not everyone has to be an executive director, but the leadership skills needed to do each position can be developed, and personal and professional growth can be developed from any seat in the room. When you develop your team, you share and you cultivate leadership with all those with whom you work, you will become a stronger leader. I've often said, if I want to take all of the credit, then I better be ready to take all the blame. While the buck stops here, getting here is a shared journey, and many hands lighten the load, and clearly, at least for me, has increased my joy. When we achieve our mission, we can all celebrate and share in the success. And then finally, find ways to practice self-care. Not all organizations have strong leave policies, but they should wherever possible. If you are the executive director of your organization, take a minute to talk with your team. Take some time to look at your personnel policies. You've just had an important session on HR. How do you take care of your team within the organizational structure that you're living in? We give so much of ourselves each day, and in order to find that joy each morning when our feet hit the ground, we must replenish. However, you can do this in ways that are fitting for you. Taking a walk, going to a movie, reading a good book, enjoying a nice meal, and taking those vacations provided by your organization and encouraging staff to do the same. I do know that for many, many years, and having worked with Lisa Crossland so many of those years, there were many times and years actually that each of us forgot to take vacations. That wasn't a good thing. I don't encourage that for anyone. If your organization has a leave policy, make sure you're taking it, because those are the times when you can go get away, get a fresh look, and take a breath to see something new, work that you do, and something about yourself. So in concluding, that learning is a journey, one step at a time. We hope that you have learned more about yourself, your leadership style, and the strengths of your organization, recognizing the challenge therein. We hope one of the highlights of this time has been learning how very resilient you are. You're making it. We want you to know how much we at the center value you, your hard work, your compassion, your resiliency, your commitment to making your communities better and stronger. We also need each of you to continue to take care of each other and yourselves. It's no surprise that on an airplane, the stewardess always tells us, put your own for yourself first, and then reach around and take care of others. Make sure that you turn on your own air and take care of yourself. We hope you found this to be a learning experience that's valuable, and that we hope, I'm not going to ask everybody to raise their hand, but quietly, we hope that all of you are members of the Center for Nonprofits, not just for yourselves, but because together, your voice at our table, we together have a stronger voice to advocate for what's going on within the nonprofit sector. Lisa mentioned a policy update that's going to happen next week, really important, related to HR, may feel like a mundane topic, minimum wage kinds of things. It's very important. It affects our organizations. Please take time to join us for that. And we need your voice to help us advocate for what is going to be the stronger voice for nonprofits. So with all of that, I just want to say again, congratulations to all. Especially thank you to all of our sponsors and our partners, Triangle Community Foundation, Guilford Nonprofit Consortium. Always a shout out to our colleague, Dr. Palmer, for her guidance throughout this program and this incredible center team that brought this to you. Lisa, Rebecca, and Leslie, great job, and kudos to all of you together and singly for doing the work, the heavy lifting, caring for our community. Is there any day of the week, especially these days, that we can't take a breath and say we need more care, more love in our communities? You're doing that every day. Thank you so much. Back to you, Lisa.
Thank you, Jean. We appreciate that and your kind words. Jamika, are you crying?
No, I was chuckling. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Okay, if you're crying too. Great. Dr. Palmer, I think we're giving it to you too.
All right, so now it's time for the conferring of the certificates. Congratulations, graduates. Congratulations, yay. So as your facilitator of this learning experience, and on behalf of the North Carolina Center for Nonprofits, you have completed the Nonprofit Management Institute. Your completion of this training institute is formally conferred on behalf of the NC Center for Nonprofits. You may turn your imaginary tassel. And you will see your names scrolling through on our Congratulations Graduates banner. Shout out to everybody who is graduating today. And I am now going to turn this over to Rebecca.
Thanks, Dr. Palmer. All right, I want to make sure we get our photos. We take a screenshot of everyone as a group here in gallery mode, and then we print those off to send as your certificate. So I'm going to do that right now. And then after that, we'll show, hold on.
Got to get situated.
I know okay. Everyone that's on the first screen, get ready, because I'm gonna take it in 3, 2, 1. Okay. All right. 3, 2, 1. There it is. And then I have to save it real quick. Pick one. Oops. Save that to my desktop. Perfect. Everyone's looking good. Jamaica, I love it. Oh, all right. I saved that one. Let me go to the second screen and let me get my snip up. There we go. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Beautiful. Let me save that real quick. 2. And great job. Thank you all for your patience with that. We're going to take a couple minutes. And we have about a graduation video that some of you participated in. Wanted to share that as part of our closing. So I'm going to try my best to see if I can do this and share the sound. What I'll ask you to do is to let me know if for some reason you can't hear the sound as I get going here. And Leslie's on backup support to help me if need be. So let me pull this up. I know I can do it. All right, I'm going to share sound. I'm going to share my screen. All right, move this out of the way. There we go. Okay, can everybody see this? All right, I'm going to click play here.
Congratulations, Nonprofit Management Institute Fall 2023 cohort. We are so excited to celebrate with you today. You're working through several work sessions focused on enhancing your capacity and building your skills as it relates to nonprofit management. We are so excited and glad that you selected our Nonprofit Management Institute as your resource to build your capacity. We are hopeful that the information and that the experience will be useful to you going forward as you provide leadership and guidance to the nonprofit organizations you represent across the state of North Carolina. Again, congratulations, and we are here excited and glad to be celebrating with you.
What I value most about the Nonprofit Management Institute is that for organizations like myself who are new in the industry, and for me, being an owner and the CEO of my own nonprofit, it provides the foundation. It provides all the information needed in order for my organization to be successful. Without what was provided, without me going through this process, I would have never known all of the legal information and financial information that I needed in order for me to be successful and to stay out of trouble. So I appreciate all of it. Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Dory DeYoung, and I would like to thank the Nonprofit Management Institute for giving me this opportunity to actually wear my graduation clothes and my graduation garb from when I did not get to wear it this past May when I completed a graduate degree because I had to attend my niece's wedding in Connecticut instead. So thank you for this opportunity. I had to buy this anyway, so I'm so happy to be able to wear it today. Thank you so much for a wonderful course. It was extremely helpful to me as I begin a career in nonprofit after coming from government. And I am grateful to Dr. Palmer for her wise counsel and excellent instruction, as well as the staff who have been very supportive and helpful. And I look forward to working with you all someday in the future.
What I value most about the Nonprofit Management Institute is the expertise of the facilitators of each session and how they validate our experiences and build on our prior knowledge, all while introducing us to new concepts.
It was terrific to get to meet everybody at the Nonprofit Management Institute. I really appreciated getting to know folks from different parts of the state, different organizations, and to together work through the structure of becoming more skillful in managing our nonprofits together. That kind of camaraderie really resonated for me. I hope we'll get to meet each other in real life sometime.
For my fellow cohort members, I am hoping that this is not the end of our communications. I'm hoping that this is just the beginning of a great partnership. I have learned so much from each and every one of you over the last few weeks, and I've truly enjoyed spending time and learning more about your organizations. So I'm hoping that our partnership will continue to help each of us grow and build and be better. So I look forward to connecting with each of you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, everyone that was able to record a video for us. That was really nice to hear some closing thoughts from you all, and not for you always to just hear from us as we close. We think that's important. Leslie, I'm going to have you bring up our final closing slide. I'm going to talk through a couple of remaining items before we log off today. That video will be included in the wraparound along with all the other things that we provide in a wraparound following today's session. You'll be getting a link, or you'll be getting, I'm going to put a link to the evaluation here in the chat for you all. Let me get to that slide. There we go. The session evaluation for today. We do also send a post-graduation follow-up evaluation that we really look forward to getting your feedback for. It's really helpful for us to know what you take from this and how you build on it and what you're putting into practice a few months after you finish. So look for that. That'll come from us. We'll send that your way in a couple of months. We love to get that feedback. It's really, really helpful for us. But today's session evaluation is in the chat. We wanted to let you know we'll be sending out your certificates, your class photo. We'll also be including a participant list, contact list in this final follow-up so you can stay in touch with one another. Another good way to do that is through our Facebook group page. We'll provide that link again in the wraparound. If you haven't joined, we recommend it. It's a great way to stay connected to not just this cohort, but all the other cohorts that came before you. So that's close to 400 people who graduated or completed this program. Not all of them are in that Facebook group, but the ones that are more engaged are. So I would love for you all to join that and take advantage of that. And then final note about the Duke Nonprofit Management Certificate. There is a form I'm going to link here, and it'll also be in the wraparound. I'll put this in the chat. This is just an interest form. We download what's put into this form and we send it off to our contacts at Duke to let them know who from this class is interested in transferring those credits for the certificate. And we'll provide more information about that, details in the wraparound, so you have that as well. And I think that's about it. We're wrapping up right at 12:30. Thanks again to everyone.
If you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
If anyone's registered for our conference, it's coming up November 2nd and 3rd. So if anyone's attending from our group, you see any of us, come on up and give us a shout out. We'll see you at the registration desk, I'm sure. But just make sure if you don't see us at the registration desk, and if we see you, we come up to you. Don't act like you don't know us now. I'm gonna pull you to the side.
Thank you. Yeah, I think registration closes next week for that. So if you're interested in coming to conference, make sure you register. I'll put a link for that as well in the wraparound, so you can easily navigate to that page and make sure you register if you haven't already. But yeah, thank you for that reminder, Lisa. We would love to see you all there.
Yep.
Or to meeting you face to face when possible. So thanks everybody. Y'all take care. Dr. Palmer, thanks again. Jean, thanks for joining us for commencement, and our team here. We're so grateful. We'll talk to y'all soon.
Bye.
Great job. Congratulations.